So, growing up, as a child, I was very, very lucky. There's so much hurt out there. Many kids that are abused or just grow up in broken situations. I didn't have that. I had a mom, I had a dad that were there my entire life. My father stayed with my mom all the way until the end of her life. And my father showed me two main things that I will always have embedded in my soul, in who I am, and that's fight, and that nothing will stop me, that all things are possible for me. It's through Christ who strengthens me, but it's just the fight of life. My father showed me that. My father never gave up. There was always a way. There was no giving up. And my father was a Marine. That was obviously just going, and he went to Vietnam multiple times. My father's a survivor. My father was a only child, and that's got to be tough. And it was just him and his mom, my grandma. My grandma was very special, and she was like the ultimate provider and the ultimate survivor and the ultimate fighter. So this is a huge attribute of my father, and something that I respect, and I am so grateful to have that, because lots of people give up. You look around, there's a lot of broken people, and it's easy going through life and you start hitting brick walls. If you don't have a solid foundation, then it really is easy to just give up. And when you give up, then it's over. You're just kind of going with the flow, the tide of life. That's I think how a lot of people end up using drugs or becoming dependent on drugs and alcohol and cigarettes. It's something that maybe helps you to fit in, or make you feel like you're fitting in, or helps you to be able to kind of forget or to numb yourself from the circumstances. And I can relate to that. I'm growing up, not when I was really young, but really as a teenager. My mom started to get sick, and it was hard on me. It was really difficult because I didn't understand. And again, I was getting all my love, the love that comes from touch and from engagement and from concern and excitement about what you're doing. When somebody is excited about what you're doing, you feel a sense of love. When somebody congratulates you or builds you up or pats you on the back, these are, especially for me, that's one of the ways that I feel love and felt love. And obviously as a child, even as a teenager, I didn't know that, but I know that now, looking back and with my experiences. So but I was hurting because that person that was giving me that love was it was changing. Everything had to change because of the illness. Now, the illness is the ultimate thief, right? My wife is sick and deals with migraines and debilitating migraines every single day, and a lot of what made her happy before has been kind of stolen. Same thing happened with my mom, is that she's all of a sudden she can't do the same things that she was able to do, and there's things happening with her body that she can't control, gaining weight, and then for her it was a blood sugar thing, a diabetes, and and it would make her like basically go into these weird states where she would looking back, knowing what I know about diabetes and blood sugar, obviously really highs, and I imagine whenever she was in this like weird states and she would be acting so strange, she was probably in the highs, and then she would just and then when she would have lows, she would just kind of be gone and in and out of consciousness. And that was really hard on me as a child, And it really started to take its toll, because I was missing that that connection. My mom was like my ultimate advocate, and she would fight for me even when she shouldn't have, or whenever I was at a time when I was really just not honest with myself or with others. I was just in a bad place as I was getting into my teens. And I believe it has a lot to do with hurting and missing that connection and being confused about the situation, and then like anger starts to set in, and I really feel like if my father would have had some training, or was able to connect with us, even if it was through play. I was an athlete, swimming and playing sports. My mom was always at all my games and always with me at all the swim meets, and my father was working, providing. So when she wasn't able to do that, I just didn't have it. We didn't have it. So for me, it affected me differently than it did my brothers. I had a brother who wasn't able to pull himself out of this cloud, I believe, that I was in, and I believe he was in, and ended up escaping into drugs. And I did stupid stuff too. I was drinking in school, and I was very frustrated, because it was I was able to read, and I understood stuff, and I was able to pass tests, but everything in school seemed to be a lot harder than what it needed to be. And I even asked for help. It put me through this rigmarole of trying to test me to see if I had some sort of learning disability, and I didn't. Knowing what I know now, and I'm now actually treated for ADD. It was ADD. Really was a challenge that I didn't even know was a challenge in my life, because it just was not diagnosed when I was younger, and it would have helped me so much. But with that spinning in my head, just the hyperactivity in my mind didn't make me hyper, but it made me definitely hyper in my mind. The same thing was going on with my younger brother. So I have two brothers, and we're both all three of us were really impacted differently by what happened with my mom getting sick, with my father doing what he knew to provide, and his way of showing love is just getting out there and providing. We were started to get into this place where we all had to kind of find our own way. I think led us down different paths. Now for me, because of the struggles, I was able to get through school, but in a creative way. I had to find a way to pass classes. I've never read a book cover to cover. I just learned how to pass tests and learn the information I needed, but never just was able to take all the information in and just soak it up like I can if I listen to it. And no one was ever able to help me to figure that out. I had to figure it out as an adult, and really only over the last 3-4 years was I able to get that under control. I was able to treat the ADD, and it's really made a huge difference in my life. And so again, and I think if my father would have been able to help with that emotional part as my mom was being sick, I think that would have been great. But hindsight's 20/20. But what I'm trying to do with this video, really, when I call it a video for Dad, I'm doing it because I'm trying to share my story and how I think all of what I have experienced and all that I've learned from working with kids and just immersing myself in a mission to make a difference in kids' lives. I just think that it's important to see the connection from an adult looking back, because I can see the world from a child's eyes. And I think it's a skill that you have to develop. I know, because I lost it whenever I moved away from working with kids, For a good 5 years, I didn't really work with kids or have kids in my life at all, and it definitely changed me. So I think that the connection that you can have with your kids it's just so very important that you're taking the time to ask them what it is that they're, what's going on with them, and really taking the time to listen and to help them to articulate what may be going on. You have to be patient, but patience is a learned virtue, right? So the reason why I have so much patience is because I have so much gratitude towards kids and what they've done for me. So I was talking about different paths, with my siblings. So the drugs and this type of path where you end up with people in your life that are toxic was natural for me and for one of my brothers, and it wasn't for the third. The third never ended up with these shady people in their life, never really got into, like, he escaped a different way. He escaped into computers and into that world, and that's really what he does still today. I escaped with whatever I knew, sports. So for me, my escape was sports. I was able to probably why I was able to do well in schools, because I was incentivized. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to do what was making me happy and helped me to escape, which was sports. My youngest brother didn't have either of those. He just ended up being, I was around shady people too, but he was around more of them, longer periods of time. And because he didn't have that connection with my father, that really would have needed to be established when we were very, very young, which was virtually impossible because my father never really learned how to interact with kids like most people, right? If you haven't been around kids your entire life like I have, then it makes sense that you wouldn't understand kids. So you have kids, that's your first orientation to having kids in your life and how kids think and how they react, and all you're doing is just basically reacting to their emotions, their crying, their happiness. You're just reacting to what they present to you. You don't know to ask questions to try to get to the bottom of what's causing it. If someone's really happy, usually it's pretty obvious, but a lot of times, as adults, we ask questions about this kind of thing, but we don't with kids. We just kind of just react to their emotions, which I think will lead to a disconnect. That's something that I have experienced, and I think that many of you may be able to relate to that. So my youngest brother ended up eventually passing away from just constant toxicity in his body, drugs. And I moved, I still did stupid stuff, drinking alcohol and pot and all that, but I was motivated by, sports. And then I was also, I made a commitment at a point in my young life when I was my senior year in high school, that I was going to do whatever it took to be successful, that I was going to make it through school, and I was just dead set on progress. But I don't think everyone does that. Well, I know they don't, because there's so much hurt, so many people that are addicted to drugs, and we have this epidemic with pills, and saw a couple movies lately that I think has helped really motivate me to make this video, because it was just really hard. It was really painful for me to watch, because it was almost like I was seeing the world from my youngest brother's eyes. It was a couple movies that basically showed the downside, how life can go from being normal to experimenting with drugs and alcohol, to using alcohol and drugs to cope, to using drugs and alcohol to survive, dependency. And then that leads to tragedy. And it did for my brother. Whenever he passed away, he wasn't using, but he had beat up his body so bad that it just eventually stopped working. And yeah, so I really want to tell that story, as hard as it is, and I just think that it's important to understand that taking the time to connect with your kids when they're very young, learning how to understand them. Everyone's unique, but there's a common thread with kids, which is basically they just want to feel safe. It's human nature, so it breaks, human nature is pretty simple. We want we want to feel safe. We want, as long as we have food and shelter, then all we really need is love at those early stages, and it's pretty simple. But love is what's complicated, actually. If you don't have an example of just true love, like my father stayed with my mom all the way through her entire life. They never divorced or separated or anything like that. I didn't experience that. So many people have. So many families are broken because that love concept is extremely complex, but it breaks down to really putting others' needs in front of your own. And that's where you can get kind of misdirected, I think, with just the provision thing, where you just are working to provide, and that's what you feel is love. And if that's all that you're doing to show love, then there's going to be a disconnect, in my opinion. That's why, again, I'm making this video so we can, or this course, so I can show you some ways that I connect with kids through imagination and through different sports. I'm going to basically have videos that I've put together that has me engaging kids in a very creative way, and it's just going to help hopefully open up your mind to another way that you can connect with your kids. It's just one way, which for me it happens to be sports. That's what I know. But it's definitely something that I think most people can use as a way to connect with their kids in a way outside of just provision, and a way outside of just making sure that basic human needs are handled. When you're able to get into the world of your child, it changes everything. And when you're able to play with them and be able to make them feel like you understand them, that connection is special. I mean, I work with so many kids, and they're strangers when I meet them, but this bond connection happens through me just listening and trying to get them to open up in the way that they can, which is basically just paying attention to their responses to whatever it may be. And typically the water brings out a lot of stuff. When a child feels scared, they react, but that fear that they are reacting to from learning to swim, or the water anxiety, there's so many fears that we have to go through in life. So I think that it definitely correlates to so many things that we have to deal with, with our kids, to help them to feel that special connection that will allow them to lean on later on in life as they grow up. That's going to be well established with those lines of communication that are established when they're very little. Hopefully will help those lines of communication be open as they grow up, and you'll be able to help them to be more successful and to be able to be happier through their entire life.